So let's dive straight into the CMS system. The CMS system is a collection of databases filled with content that you want to use throughout the chatbot. These databases we call entities, and seeing that we're building the tutorial chatbot, information chatbot, I want to actually start by creating a database in which I'm going to store the different chapters of this tutorial. So what I'm going to do is either click here on new entity or click this button, create new entity, and create the first one. I have to give it a name, which is going to be chapters, of course. So create, and my first entity is created. As you can see, no items yet because we didn't store any data in it, and there's already 2 fields in there, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But when we go into the configuration of this entity. Now, the configuration of the entity is either possible by clicking on the configuration icon here, or later on if we're in the entity. Now, if we're going into the entity, you see there's no items yet, you don't see any fields, and here again is the configuration icon. Now, if I click on that, I can rename my entity, or I can click on form fields and I can actually define more fields. But before we define more fields, I want to tell you that there's always 2 mandatory fields in each entity, which is called name and the status. So this is going to be the name of the record, and this is going to be the status of this record. It's either going to be enabled or disabled. You can see here there's some different types of form fields, which I will get into in a minute. But we are going to create a new form field as well. So the first one we're going to create is going to be description, and that's going to be just plain text. Now, in order to create this field, we have to click plus, and now it's created. So this is going to be the name of the chapter, which is going to be called either general introduction, CMS, variables, things like that, the status, and this is going to be the description. Now, what I need to tell you is that sorting data later on is going to be kind of difficult if you just give it only a name. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a chapter number field, and I'm using the name of the entity, chapters, and then number, or we can say sorting. But seeing that we're using numbers for the chapters as well, I'm going to say number. Now, what I can do is click here on the form fields, type, and as you can see, we don't have numeric values as of yet. So for now, I'm just going to use text, and seeing that there's also text multiple values, I'm going to use text because then it will recognize it as a single option. Right, so that's going to be that. Then I'm also going to do some pictures because it looks a little bit better. So I'm going to call it chapters picture. And I'm going to use the form field type photo. Plus, all right. For now, I want to leave it at this. I will get into these different type of form fields as well, multiple values, single options, entity references, etc., etc. I'm going to leave it like this. So this one is empty, it won't be created because I didn't hit the plus button. I'm going to hit close. So now we set up our first entity, and what we're going to do now is create our first item, our first record of this database, which we do by clicking on new item. We give it a name, general introduction. It's of course enabled. The description is learn to set up and configure, to create and set up your first bot. The number is going to be 1. And the picture, either you can paste a URL, image URL over here, or you can just upload it by clicking on Edit, choose a file, and then in the assets it says General Info. It's being processed. Wait for this till you see the picture. If you click it, create earlier, it won't create it. Now I say create. There you go. I now say new item. And what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to do the second chapter, but the third one actually, which is going to be variables. Learn how to use the variables to make your bot more dynamic. This is going to be 3. And I'm going to upload the third file then. There you go. Create the second one, which is going to be called CMS. Learn how to use and utilize the CMS system. This is going to be 2. Click on Edit. Click on Open. There you go. Create new item with .ia. Learn to make your bot smart with IA. It's going to be the 4th chapter, and I also already have a picture ready for that. So here we go. I created my first entity. As you can see, a total of 5 fields, which we can use here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I've got a total of 4 items in there, which is 4 records actually. When I click on it, I can see them over here. These are a couple of things that I want to rerun with you guys. We can't actually do a sorting as of yet, but also if I would use these names to sort items, I'm getting the CMS first, then a general introduction because it's alphabetical, and this is why I set the chapter number as a sorting field actually. And later on you will understand why I'm using the sorting function, and actually why I'm doing it separate. So for now, this is the creating your first entity, a little bit information about the form fields, and also using a picture already in there. And in the next chapter, we're going to go a little bit deeper in how to utilize all this.